Tupolev is a Russian aerospace and defense company, headquartered in Basmanny District, Central Administrative Okrug, Moscow. Known officially as Joint Stock Company Tupolev, it is the successor of the Tupolev OKB, Tupolev Design Bureau headed by the Soviet aerospace engineer A.N.Tupolev. The company celebrated its 90th anniversary on October 22, 2012. The Russian government merged Tupolev with Mikoyan, Ilyushin, Urkut, Sukhoi, and Yakovlev as a new company named United Aircraft Corporation. The capabilities of PSC Tupolev include development, manufacturing and overhaul for both civil and military aerospace products such as aircraft and weapons systems. It is also active with missile and naval aviation technologies. More than 18,000 Tupolev aircraft were produced for the USSR and the Eastern Bloc. History: Tupolev OKB was founded by Andrei Tupolev in 1922. Its facilities are tailored for aeronautics research and aircraft design only. Manufacturing is handled by other firms. It researched all-metal airplanes during the 1920s based directly on the pioneering work already done by Hugo Junkers during World War I. The first successful all-metal airplane was built with sheet electrical steel by the German engineer Hugo Junkers in 1915. With the never-completed Junkers J3 of 1916, used strictly as a design study, Junkers shifted to light construction using corrugated duralumin. In the aftermath of World War I and to evade the terms of the Versailles Treaty that prevented German companies from building warplanes, Junkers founded a clandestine aircraft factory in the Moscow suburb of Philly in 1922. This factory was turned over to Tupolev in 1925. Russian sources usually refrain from making the link between Junkers and Tupolev. Tupolev was an able designer, but his first-generation aircraft were heavily influenced by his early connection to Junkers. Among the notable results during Tupolev's early period were two significant all-metal heavy bombers with corrugated duralumin skins. The An-4 twin-engined bomber, which first flew in 1925, and the four-engined Ant-6 of 1932, from which such airplanes as the Ant-20 were derived. Tupolev's design approach in these two airplanes defined for many years the trends of heavy aircraft development, civil and military. During World War II, the twin-engined, all-metal Tu-2 was one of the best frontline bombers of the Soviets. Several variants of it were produced in large numbers from 1942. During the war it used wooden rear fuselages due to a shortage of metal. This was succeeded by the development of the jet-powered Tu-16 bomber, which used a swept-back wing for good subsonic performance. As turbojets were not fuel-efficient enough to provide truly intercontinental range, the Soviets elected to design a new bomber, the Tu-20, more commonly referred to as the Tu-95. It, too, was based on the fuselage and structural design of the Tu-4, but with four colossal Kuznetsov Nk-12 turboprop engines providing a unique combination of jet-like speed and long range. It became the definitive Soviet intercontinental bomber, with intercontinental range and jet-like performance. In many respects the Soviet equivalent of the Boeing B-52 Stratofortress, it served as a strategic bomber and in many alternate roles, including reconnaissance and anti-submarine warfare. The Tu-16 was developed into the civil Tu-104. The Tu-95 became the basis of the unique Tu-114 medium to long-range airliner, the fastest turboprop aircraft ever. One common feature found in many large subsonic Tupolev jet aircraft is large pods extending rearward from the trailing edge of the wings, holding the aircraft's landing gear. These allow the aircraft to have landing gears made up of many large, low-pressure tires, which are invaluable for use on the poor-quality runways that were common in the Soviet Union at the time. For example, the Tu-154 airliner, the Soviet equivalent of the Boeing 727, has 14 tires, the same number as Boeing's far larger 777-200. Even before the first flights of the Tu-16 and Tu-20, Tu-95, Tupolev was working on supersonic bombers, culminating in the unsuccessful Tu-98. Although that aircraft never entered service, it became the basis for the prototype Tu-102 and the Tu-105, which evolved into the supersonic Tu-22 bomber in the mid-1960s. Intended as a counterpart to the Convair B-58 Hustler, the Tu-22 proved rather less capable, although it remained in service much longer than the American aircraft. Meanwhile, the K department was formed in the Design Bureau, with the task of designing unmanned aircraft such as the Tu-139 and the Tu-143 unmanned reconnaissance aircraft. In the 1960s, A.N.Tupolev's son, A.Tupolev, became active with management of the agency. His role included the development of the world's first supersonic airliner, the Tu-144, the popular Tu-154 airliner, and the Tupolev Tu-22M strategic bomber. All these developments enabled the Soviet Union to achieve strategic military and civil aviation parity with the West. In the 1970s, Tupolev concentrated its efforts on improving the performance of the Tu-22M bombers, whose variants included maritime versions. It is the presence of these bombers in quantity that brought about the SALT I and SALT II treaties. Also, the efficiency and performance of the Tu-154 was improved, culminating in the efficient Tu-154M. In the 1980s, the Design Bureau developed the supersonic Tu-160 strategic bomber. Features include variable geometry wings. Post-Soviet era. With the end of the Cold War, research work was concentrated on subsonic civil aircraft, mainly on operating economics and alternative fuels. The developments include fly-by-wire, use of efficient high-bypass turbofans, and advanced aerodynamic layouts for the 21st century transport aircraft such as the Tu-204, Tu-214, Tu-330 and Tu-334. Among current Tupolev projects, further development of Tu-204, 214ths and Tu-334 aircraft family, development of cargo aircraft Tu-330, regional and executive Tu-324 aircraft, research on practical aspects of aircraft operation using alternative fuels, modernization of Russian naval aviation and air force. On the 19th of August 2009, Tupolev announced that it had a contract with the Russian Defense Ministry to develop a new generation strategic bomber which will be a conceptually new plane based on the most advanced technologies. Directors. Andrei Nikolaevich Tupolev was a leading designer at the Moscow-based Central Aerohydrodynamic Institute from 1929 until his death in 1972. This design bureau produced mostly bombers and airliners. Alexei Andreevich Tupolev, son of Andrei Tupolev, was also a famous aircraft designer. His most famous design was the supersonic airliner Tupolev Tu-144. He managed Tupolev until his death in 2001. Tupolev aircraft. Early aircraft Ant-1, the first aircraft by A.N.T. and the first Soviet-built aircraft. Mixed materials design. The work started in 1921. Assembly began in 1922. The tests were cancelled due to engine malfunction. Ant-2, two-passenger aircraft. The first Soviet all-metal aircraft, 1924. and 3 R3 PS3 all-metal two-seat recce biplane 1925. About 100 were built, and 4 TB1 all-metal twin-engined monoplane heavy bomber 1925. There were 212 aircraft built. There was a G1 cargo version, and 5 I-4 prototype of I-4 fighter. The first aircraft designed by Pavel Sukhoi, 1927. 369 were built. I-4 was in service in 1928 to 1933, and 6 TB3, 4-engine development of TB1, 1930. There was a G2 cargo version, and 7 R6 KR6 Mr. 6 development of TB1 as reconnaissance cruiser and maritime patrol torpedo bomber 1931, and 8 MDR2 maritime long-range recce flying boat 1931. And 9 PS9 3-engine passenger airliner 1929, and 10 R7 reconnaissance light bomber aircraft prototype 1930, and 11 MTBT twin-hulled flying boat project 1929, and 12 I-5 biplane fighter prototype 1930. Later built as Polikarpov I-5, and 13 I-8 fighter interceptor prototype, developed from AN-12 1930, and 14 Pravda, large 5-engine propaganda monoplane developed from the AN-9 1931, and 15 Die-3 two-seat fighter project 1930, and 16 TB4 6-engine version of TB3 predecessor of AN-20 1933, and 17 TSHB prototype ground attack aircraft 1930. And 18 TSH-2 twin-engine biplane ground attack aircraft development of AN-7 1930, and 19 passenger airliner project, and 20 Maxim Gorky 8-engine huge carguard propaganda aircraft 1934, and 21 Mi-3 multi-seat fighter development of VAR-6 1933. And 22 Mk1 armored 6-engine recce flying boat development of AN-11 1934, and 23 I-12 experimental twin-engine fighter equipped with 2 recoilless 75mm cannons 1931, and 24 TB4 4-engined heavy bomber prototype developed from AN-16 precursor of AN-26 1931, and 25 single-engine monoplane long-range bomber designed by Pavel Sukhoi. A.N.Tupolev.The was used in a record flight from Moscow to San Jacinto, California, USA over the North Pole, 10,148 kilometers, 1933, and 26 TB6 12-engined heavy bomber aircraft project, 1932. And 27 MDR-4 MTB-1 patrol flying boat for the Soviet Navy 1934, and 28 cargo version of TB-6, and 29 DIP-1 twin-engine fighter development of AN-21 1935, and 29 passenger version of MTB-1, and 30 SK-1 twin-engine escort fighter high-speed bomber aircraft developed from the R-6 and Mi-3 1933, and 31 I-14 all-metal monoplane fighter 1933. And 32 I-13 single-seat fighter project 1934. And 33 passenger airliner project 1932, and 34 Mi-4 multi-seat fighter project, and 35 PS-35 twin-engine passenger airliner developed from the SB 1936, and 36 DB-1 long-range bomber developed from the AN-25 1936. AN-37 DB-2 long-range bomber based on the DB-1 1935, AN-38 VSB-1 high-altitude high-speed bomber project, prototype of SB, AN-39 prototype for SB, AN-40 SB, PS-40, PS-41 medium bomber, also erroneously known as SB-2 1934. AN-41 T-1 LK-1 twin-engine high-speed multi-role aircraft 1934, AN-42 TB-7 four-engined heavy bomber prototype 1934. Later built as Petlikov P-8 and 43 six-seater airliner project 1936, and 44 MTB-2 Chaika heavy bomber flying boat 1937, and 45 DIP two-seat cannon armed fighter project 1936. And 46 Die-8 three-seat fighter prototype developed from the SB 1935, and 47 I-20 fighter project, and 48 SS high-speed sport aircraft project developed from the SB 1935. And 49 reconnaissance aircraft project developed from the SB, and 50 proposed twin-engined high-speed airliner developed from the AN-43 1937, and 51 short-range bomber prototype 1937. Later built as Sukhoi Su-2, and 52, and 53, proposed four-engined airliner 1936, and 54, and 55, and 56, SRB high-speed reconnaissance bomber project, and 57, PB high-altitude heavy dive bomber project 1939. And 58, first prototype of the Tu-2 1941. And 59, second prototype of the Tu-2 1941, and 60, third prototype of the Tu-2, and 64, long-range four-engine bomber project, prototype of Tu-4, and 66, airliner variant of AN-64, Tu-2, BAT, three-seat medium bomber, 1941. Tu-4, all copied from several Cs Boeing B-29 Superfortress. Initial name is B-4, 1947. Experimental aircraft Tu-1, prototype night fighter variant of the Tu-2, 1946. Tu-6, prototype reconnaissance variant of the Tu-2. Tu-8, prototype long-range bomber variant of the Tu-2, 1947. Tu-10, Frosty, prototype high-speed bomber, developed from the Tu-2, 1943. Tu-12, medium jet bomber prototype, developed from the Tu-2, 1947. Tu-18, jet-powered version of the Tu-8, 1947. Tu-20, jet-powered short-range bomber project, 1947. Tu-22, high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft developed from the Tu-2, 1947. Tu-24, high-altitude bomber project developed from the Tu-2, 1946. Tu-26, original designation of Tu-22M. Tu-28, bomber project, 1947. Tu-30, four-engined bomber project, 1947. Tu-54, prototype agricultural aircraft, 1992. Tu-64, light multi-purpose aircraft project. Tu-70, car, prototype airliner variant of the Tu-4, 1946. Tu-71, prototype short-range bomber developed from the Tu-2, 1946. Tu-73, three-engine development of the Tu-18, 1947. Tu-74, proposed high-altitude reconnaissance aircraft developed from the Tu-73. Tu-75, prototype car guard transport variant of the Tu-4, 1950. Tu-76, radial jet engine torpedo bomber project developed from the Tu-2, 1947. Tu-76, military transport variant of the Tu-4. Tu-78 as Tu-73 bomber variant but powered by Soviet engines, 1948. Tu-79 as Tu-4 but powered by M490K engines. Tu-79 as Tu-74 but powered by Soviet engines, 1949. Tu-80 prototype long-range bomber variant of the Tu-4, predecessor of Tu-85, 1949. Tu-81 twin-engined medium bomber project developed from the Tu-73, 1949. Tu-81 initial prototype of the Tu-14. Tu-82 Butcher experimental swept-wing jet bomber, 1949. Tu-83 bomber project developed from the Tu-82, 1949. Tu-84 prototype reconnaissance aircraft, 1948. Tu-85 barge prototype long-range heavy bomber variant of the Tu-4, 1951. Tu-86 long-range jet bomber project, 1949. Tu-87 Tu-86 converted into an engine testbed, 1951. Tu-88 initial prototype of the Tu-16, 1952. Tu-89 prototype reconnaissance variant of the Tu-14, 1951. Tu-90 prototype turboprop-powered variant of the Tu-16, 1954. Tu-91 boot prototype naval attack aircraft, 1954. Tu-92 initial prototype of the Tu-16R, 1955. Tu-93 initial prototype of the Tu-14T, 1952. Tu-94 prototype turboprop-powered variant of the Tu-4, 1950. Tu-95 LAL prototype nuclear-powered aircraft based on the Tu-95M, 1961. Tu-96 prototype long-range intercontinental high-altitude strategic bomber variant of the Tu-95, 1956. Tu-97 long-range bomber project developed from the Tu-16. Tu-98 Bakfan prototype swept-wing jet bomber, 1956. Tu-99 prototype turbojet version of the Tu-96. Tu-100 proposed parasite fighter, 1953. Tu-101 assault transport project, 1952. Tu-102 airliner project based on the Tu-101, 1952. Tu-102 initial designation of the Tu-28. Tu-103 supersonic bomber developed from the Tu-97. Tu-105 initial prototype of the Tu-22, 1954. Tu-106 a re-engined Tu-22, 1954. Tu-107 prototype military transport variant of the Tu-104, 1958. Tu-108 proposed long-range carrier aircraft, 1952. Tu-109 a re-engined Tu-108. Tu-110 Cooker prototype long-range airliner developed from the Tu-104, 1957. Tu-111 to 24-seat airliner project, 1954. Tu-112 proposed supersonic tactical bomber, 1955. Tu-114 prototype airliner variant of the Tu-95 entered production. Tu-115 proposed military transport variant of the Tu-114. Tu-117 proposed military transport version of the Tu-110. Tu-118 proposed turboprop version of Tu-104. Tu-119 prototype nuclear and kerosene-powered version of the Tu-95 LAL. Tu-120 proposed nuclear-powered supersonic bomber. Tu-122 supersonic bomber project based on Tu-98 1957. Tu-124 low-altitude bomber project 1957. Tu-125 proposed medium-range supersonic bomber 1958. Tu-127 proposed supersonic tactical bomber 1958. Tu-127 proposed military cargo version of Tu-124. Tu-129 supersonic bomber project 1959. Tu-130 unmanned glider project 1959. Tu-132 proposed low-altitude transonic bomber 1958. Tu-134 SSD project developed from the Tu-106 1960. Tu-135 supersonic strategic bomber project 1958. Tu-135 supersonic bomber. Tu-136 Zvezda proposed spaceplane. Tu-136 VTOL fighter project 1963. Tu-136 airliner freighter project. Tu-137 Sputnik unmanned spaceplane project developed from the Tu-136 Zvezda. Tu-137 supersonic strategic bomber project. Tu-138 proposed long-range supersonic interceptor of the Tu-28. Tu-139 hypersonic aircraft project. Tu-148 proposed long-range patrol interceptor of the Tu-28. Tu-155 a Tu-154 converted into a testbed for alternative fuels, 1988. Tu-156 a re-engined Tu-155 Tu-156 prototype early warning aircraft based on the Tu-126 1970. Tu-161 strategic bomber project developed from the Tu-160. Tu-164 initial designation of the Tu-154M 1980. Tu-170 conventional version of Tu-160. Tu-174 proposed lengthened variant of the Tu-154. Tu-184 short-haul airliner concept. Tu-194 proposed shortened variant of the Tu-154 1973. Tu-194 three-engined variant of Tu-184. Tu-202 anti-submarine aircraft project. Tu-206 a Tu-204 converted into a testbed for alternative fuels. Tu-216 a Tu-204 converted into a testbed for cryogenic fuel. Tu-244 SSD concept developed from the Tu-144 1979. Tu-334 a short-haul jet airliner concept 1999. Tu-2000 proposed long-range heavy bomber 1986. Bombers and other military types. Tu-14 bosun torpedo bomber. Tu-16 Badger strategic bomber. Tu-20 Tu-95 Bear long-range strategic bomber and modifications. Tu-142 Bear F Bear jet anti-submarine reconnaissance. Tu-22 Blinder supersonic medium bomber. Tu-22M Tu-26 Backfire supersonic swing-wing long-range maritime strike bomber. Tu-126 Moss airborne early warning and control aircraft variant of the Tu-114. Tu-160 Blackjack supersonic swing-wing bomber. Interceptors. Tu-28 Tu-128 Fiddler Airliners. Transport Tu-104 Camel medium-range airliner developed from the Tu-16. Tu-114 Rossiya Cleat long-range airliner developed from the Tu-95. Tu-116 Tu-95 bombers fitted with passenger cabins. Tu-124 Cookpot, a short-haul jet airliner developed from the Tu-104. Tu-134 Krusty, a rear-engine evolution of the Tu-124. Tu-144 Charger, a supersonic airliner similar to Concorde. Tu-154 Careless, a medium-range narrow-body jet airliner. Tu-204 a medium-range narrow-body jet airliner. Tu-214 Tu-204 200s built at a different factory. Tu-224 Tu-214 powered by two Rolls-Royce RB211 engines. Tu-234 internal designation for the Tu-204-300. Unmanned aircraft. Tu-113 proposed unmanned flying bomb, 1955. Tu-121 unmanned aerial vehicle prototype, 1959. Tu-123 YSDREB-1, 1961. Tu-139 YASDREB-2, reusable version of the Tu-123, 1968. Tu-141 Yastreb-P, prototype manned version of the Tu-123. Tu-141 Strige. Tu-143 Race. Tu-243 Race D, improved version of the Tu-143. Tu-300 Caution, modernized version of the Tu-143, 1995. Planned aircraft PACDA, next-generation strategic bomber. Tu-324, a regional airliner concept. Tu-330, medium transport aircraft based on the Tu-204. Tu-214. Tu-338, internal designation for the Tu-330K. Tu-344, a supersonic business jet concept based on the Tu-22 M3. Tu-404, a long-range extra-large flying wing airliner concept. Tu-414, a stretch. Tu-324. Tu-444, a supersonic business jet concept. Boats ANT-1, speedboat, 1922. ANT-2, the first all-metal boat, 1923. ANT-3 Pravinets, torpedo boat, 1928. ANT-4, SH-4 Tupolev, 1927. ANT-5, G5, 1933. Aerosledge Tupolev A3 Aerosledge.